Hello everyone, great to have you on the channel here of MeteoMark Weather. Welcome. We are watching Tropical Storm Francine rapidly becoming Hurricane Francine with a slight eastward shift in some of the latest models. This is a little bit troubling here for parts of Louisiana. We'll take a look at all the analysis here on what's likely to happen, as well as the rest of your tropics. We're looking at Invest 92L out here, two areas that we could be looking at tropical storms as well. We'll take a look at all your weather from the Atlantic, North America, and all the way to the Western Pacific. Let's get into it. And one more thing here before we dive into all the information starting from the beginning. That is a Category 2 there showing up just before landfall. It looks like we're going to have an intensifying system that comes very close, just under a major hurricane. So taking a look at our water vapor loop here of Francine, you can really see, and I'll show you the infrared as well. It's showing up very nicely. But you can see the dry air here to the northwest, very moist air where this system is. It's got so much going for it at this point. Here's a three-dimensional satellite view of Francine. You can see very symmetrical on satellite here. Storm's got a lot going for it. One thing you're probably noticing, though, the southeast corner quadrant of this system, there's a little bit of lack of activity as of late. That is likely to fill in. It's just getting really close to the coast, and it's probably sucking in just a little bit of dry air on the south and southeast side. But it does look like it's wobbling here towards South Texas. I assure you, that's not what's going to be happening in the medium term here. You can see that's going to be heading towards the northeast eventually here. But there's going to be impacts up and down the Texas and Louisiana coast. So starting off with the European model, and in a couple minutes I'll show you the hurricane model and then the GFS. So as we put this into time, the European, well, all the models so far have been great in the Western Gulf of Mexico. They were terrible with this storm when it was moving through the MDR and the Caribbean because they kept showing it was going to develop and it never developed into anything. So here we go as we head throughout the 10th into the 11th. Obviously, this becoming a hurricane pretty quickly here, 100-mile-per-hour winds, and not be surprised if this heads up towards 105, 110 mile per hour wind. So it's going to get very close to Category 3, I think. But here it is on September 11th at 8 p.m. So the European model is a little slower with the storm, and it's been trending slightly eastward here, which is a little troubling. So it's a trend we'll have to keep a very close watch on. But here it is, 8 p.m. And then as we head towards, there's 5 a.m. on the 12th. So the European model is wobbling this. You can see the center towards between Baton Rouge and Lafayette here, just northwest of New Orleans. That's going to push those feeder bands well east into Mississippi and Alabama as we head on into the 12th on Thursday. And then you can see that moves to the north. Yeah, there's going to be some tremendous rains and severe weather as we head north into Memphis, Jonesboro, as we head on to the Thursday into Friday, all the way up into the Ohio River Valley as well. So this is going to be a high, a system, high impact system that we haven't seen in a little while here in Louisiana and much of the Gulf Coast, parts of Texas, all the way over to Mississippi and Alabama as well. Do not want to leave these states out. All right, so as we look at the HWRF here of tropical storm, soon to be Hurricane Francine here, it's not going to be long. Here we go. We have our Mesoscale model, and it's doing a very good job heading right down the center of guidance here as we head through 2 p.m. on Tuesday. So here we are. It's paralleling the coast of Texas. You can see those feeder bands on the northwest side. Of course, the worst side of the storm, obviously, is the eastern and northeastern side, and that is the side that's going to be heading towards Louisiana here. Still going to get some impacts here along coastal Texas. This is 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning, September 11th. And you can see it is intensifying to a 986 millibar. And there it is. It's going to make it to Category 2 status here, 100 mile per hour with gusts to 120, 980 millibars. You can see if we zoom in right on the Louisiana coastline here, you can see here's Cameron. And you have to go further inland here. There's Lafayette. So yeah, we're going to be looking at these feeder bands well on the eastern side. Here's New Orleans over here. This is 980 millibars. So it's a little bit less strong than the GFS and the European model here. But you can see where it's making landfall. This is going to be a strong storm. So yeah, it's not a major hurricane. It's going to be close. So please heed those hurricane watches and warnings. And you can see it barrels inland here as we head through the 12th here, Thursday. So this heading right up the Mississippi River Valley. And there it is, 2 p.m. on Thursday, heading just up to the north here, just becoming, a buzzsaw of rainfall and some gusty winds, and watch out for those tornadoes. But let me show you the eastern side of this system as well, because this will be tapering off in Texas come the 11th here. But look at the eastern side of the storm into Gulfport, Mississippi here, into Alabama. Watch out, Mobile over here, maybe as far east. This could get pretty ugly here. This is the east side where you get those tornadoes. Even some storm surge as far east here as Gulfport, Mobile here, in Pensacola. So watch out. That's heading to the northeast as we head throughout Thursday morning here. And then you can see it pushing all the way up here into the Mississippi and eventually the Ohio Valley. And then it just starts to stall across western Tennessee here and southern Illinois. All right, so looking at the GFS here, what is going on with Francine on the GFS? Well, I can tell you it's pretty much the same as the European and the hurricane model. So as we head through the 11th here, you can see, yeah, this latest GFS run is wanting to take this on the eastern part of the envelope. This is a little bit troubling here. So if we continue to push this into motion here, you can see the GFS really intensifying this. And then up towards, look at this, landfall just west of, wow, yeah, this is just southwest of New Orleans here. So this is quite a bit further east than the European model and the hurricane model. So this is a trend we'll have to keep an eye on. This would put the northeast quadrant up just to the west of New Orleans here. And then look at this. Wow. This is quite a shift here on the GFS. We'll have to continue to watch this and see if this is going to be a thing. But look at this. As we continue through the 12th here at 5 a.m., it's booking it up towards Jackson, Mississippi here. And I do want to mention you guys here in Mississippi and Alabama, you're going to have a tremendous tornado problem here, flooding and flash flooding. So definitely do not want to downplay your areas as well. And look at this. I know I had some people on my channel asking about Georgia and South Carolina. You are going to have feeder bands all the way into the Panhandle of Florida, all the way up through Georgia and the Carolinas as well. So you can see that system really just stalling to the north here. Before we continue with more model analysis here, if you made it this far in the video and you like it, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I'd love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe, bell notification button so you're alerted when I come out with any one of my future weather video updates. Let's continue. And if we look at the Mesoscale models here, let's take a look at the NAM 3 kilometer. You can see this system really does have a pretty good handle on it as well. Here it is on the 10th at 10 p.m. as we head into Tuesday evening. And look at that. It's got a very well-developed eye at this point, going into 9 a.m. on Wednesday, September 11th. So look at that. That's really ominous. It's also just wobbling slight east of guidance here. There's the landfall just south of Lafayette, heading up toward, there's the eye right over Lafayette here as we head towards 11 p.m. on the 11th. And you can see that heading right up the Mississippi River Valley here. Plenty of feeder band action as we head into southern Mississippi and Alabama here. So watch that. Watch those feeder bands come right into New Orleans as well. There's going to be some tremendous problems, storm surges all the way over through eastern Louisiana and Mississippi, Alabama, and maybe even as far east as the Panhandle of Florida here. You can see those feeder bands. This is 2 a.m. on the 12th. This is Thursday morning, heading right into Gulfport and Pensacola. Now let's take a look at our wind analysis here. This is showing up very nicely on our Mesoscale model, our NAM 3 kilometer. You can see, look at the worst of it barreling right towards southwestern part of Louisiana here. So this is going to come in. This is really, I fear this, the way the eye is looking, it is going to be intensifying rapidly as it approaches the coast. There is landfall point. That is 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening, and then it heads inland. Plenty of wind heading inland as well. Watch out. The wind threat continues. And here's our wind analysis here on our hurricane model. Let's take a look at this. We will look and get a full run here. Look at, yeah, this is going to be a pretty intense. This is Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. You can really see the eye really pushing towards the coastline here. This is really where things really start to deteriorate with the Louisiana coast. We're going to have gusty winds all the way back through Texas, but it looks like Houston is dodging a massive bullet here. And then look at that, heading right up through central Louisiana, south central Louisiana, and then eventually right up the Mississippi River here as we head into the 12th. Also, thanks to Tropical Tidbits here for our intensity analysis. So as we go through 24 and here we go 48 hours, you can see this thing's going to become, I think, a category 2 at this point. So, you know, it's got a very good structure to it. It's got a lot of going for it. Low wind shear, almost non-existent. High sea surface temperature content. Probably looking between 100 and probably 105, maybe pushing closer to 110. We'll see. And look at sea surface temperature analysis here. You can see we do have a little bit of a saving grace here. You can see right along the Texas and Louisiana coast, we have some cooler waters, a little bit of upwelling here. So that may save us just a tad, but it's not really that far below average here. So yeah, we're looking at very high sea surface temperature content through most of the Western Gulf here and the MDR as well. So we take a look at our upper air, dry air analysis here. You can see our storm here across the Western Gulf here. That's going to continue to strengthen as we head in time, a 972 millibar low, making it towards Louisiana as we head into Wednesday here. We don't start to get dry air here feeding in on the back edge of it until it starts to make landfall, and then significant weakening, obviously. Now, our other systems out here, let's just back this up. You can see we got two systems dancing around out here. These are likely to become tropical storms, especially the second one out here that I showed you in red. That is likely to become a storm. We'll have to see what happens with that. But one thing I want to note here, this is right around Thursday, September 19th. Look at the stream of tropical moisture up the U.S. East Coast here from what's left over from our Gulf Coast storm. And here we go with the European model. You can see European model finally getting a hold of this low pressure system, Francine, as it moves towards Louisiana, now 978, 974. We pretty much have unanimous agreement here between the GFS and the European model. And then look at this, as we head out in time, we're watching our system out here into the MDR. We're going to continue to watch that as it moves westward. European model now has it becoming a hurricane next Wednesday, September 18th. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that. But one thing to note here, European model kind of keeping what's left of Francine up here into parts of the Great Lakes with that high anchored over the Northeast and New England here. And one last thing I want to note here, I want to mention the Caribbean here for dry air. There's going to be a lot of dry air over the next week or two across the Caribbean. So it looks like Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Hispaniola here, Puerto Rico, Lesser Antilles, for the most part, you're going to remain mostly dry. Lesser Antilles, the first part here of the forecast period, as we head through the first part of this week, you'll get some showers. And I'll go over those rainfall amounts here momentarily. So let's take a look at wind shear here. Our European model's been doing really good job with our wind shear forecast here. And you can see the wind shear on Francine as we head through Wednesday. It's going to be off to the north here. You can't really see my marker here because it's red. It's just like the highest wind shear. Out here by the Cape Verde Islands, also light wind shear, although on the southeast side of the system, you do have some stronger wind shear, and on the north side here as well. But as you can see, up to landfall here, Francine's got a pretty good environment. It's not until like late Wednesday evening into Thursday. Obviously, it's getting caught up in the westerlies here. And look at out here into the MDR. As we head through Friday, September 13th here, look at, there's not a lot of wind shear going on here. So that is very conducive for development of these tropical systems. You see, all the wind shear at this point is well off into the northern Gulf, North Atlantic here, and the eastern Atlantic. So we got an area of very low wind shear as we head through Tuesday, September 17th. And before we continue with our analysis, I want to show you the rest of the Atlantic here. Obviously, there is other tropical systems we're looking at. Invest 92L out here, 60, and then a 70% chance with our big tropical wave out here by the Cape Verde Islands. So there's two systems we're going to be watching. Caribbean looks pretty quiet with exception here into the Lesser Antilles as we head into Tuesday into Wednesday up towards Puerto Rico. You'll get some gusty winds and some heavy rain, but look at these two systems out here. They're kind of dance around each other. It looks like the second system becomes stronger at this point. Invest 92L continues to bend towards the west there. Look at, you can see this system becoming the primary system as it really starts to develop here by the 13th into the 14th. So as we head into the weekend, we could be looking at a system It could be intensifying, tropical storm, or maybe even hurricane. And look at these couple systems behind it here. They're just lining up off the African coastline here out by the Cape Verde. So the Cape Verde season is alive and well. And there it is on the European model. It's becoming dangerously close. This far out, the margin of error is about 1,000 to 1,500 miles here. So keep that in mind. And then look it out here. We got that big, strong system. There is our frontal boundary stalled to the north. So we'll have to watch the northwestern Caribbean up to Florida for potential development up through the Bahamas as well. And then as we continue in time, the European model's showing a very optimistic picture. Major hurricane, but a fish storm. That could be, although Azores, we have to keep an eye on you if this does hold true. But at this point, the tropics look very active. Look at the southern Caribbean, southwestern Gulf again, the intertropical convergence zone, a major hurricane out here. This is the 19th of September. Now, as we look at the rest of the tropics here on our GFS model, you can see our two systems out here. Number one, just outline them here. And then number two, this actually is on September 11th. So we're pushing into Wednesday here. Let's see what the GFS does. It kind of weakens our first system a bit here. And then the second system takes over. GFS does something really curious and doesn't even really develop it. It just becomes a very broad area of low pressure. Look at this here coming off the coast of Africa, though, southeast of the Cape Verde Islands. Caribbean looks pretty crystal clear. Let's just back it up a little bit. I'll show you the Caribbean here. As we go out here in time, it just looks beautiful. And then look at that. As we get into the 15th, the 16th, into the 17th, we have our common proverbial showers here. Look at this, though. By the 19th, we see another system trying to form in the Western Gulf. Could this be the season of the Western Gulf's hurricanes? It's quite possible. And then look at that. That pushes to the northeast there. Let's just back that up for, there it is, the 14th, 15th, 16th. That moisture from the Western Gulf eventually tries to push across Florida. There's the 18th in Florida, the 19th. You're getting some gully washers just south of Orlando, especially here towards Miami. And that conveyor belt of moisture just continues until about the 21st or 22nd. But we're going to be watching the Cape Verde season out here. It's going to continue to produce, I think, quite a few storm action through the end of September. So looking at total rainfall amounts here, you know it's going to be the Gulf Coast region. Coastal Texas, Louisiana, especially Mississippi there, Alabama, even the Panhandle of Florida getting in on the act of it as this storm makes landfall and approaches. And you can see where it is headed. It's going to pretty much stall across the Mississippi and Tennessee River valleys here. But look at here along the Gulf Coast. This is where this is not unheard of with a landfalling hurricane. You're likely to see 5 to as much as 12 inches in some of these areas. So heading to the Caribbean here. Jamaica and the Cayman Islands are going to, not going to be much rain. Let's get that out of the way. There's not going to be much rain through at least the next week. You do start to get some showers come the weekend. Even Central America is not as heavy rain until we get to about Thursday, the 19th. Here we start to fill in some of this with 60 to 100 millimeters in some of these areas. Most of the moisture, as you see on this map, is really bottled up over the northern Gulf, Florida, the northern Bahamas here, where you get upwards of 80 to 100 millimeters and plus beyond that, upwards of the 3 to 5 inches. So heading to the Eastern Caribbean here, let's see. We do have that tropical wave moving through this week, and we do have a few, let's get that out of there. We do have a few other tropical waves. Of course, we have our Invest 92L out here. We're going to keep an eye on that system. Europeans saying it's going to curve, but GFS kind of bending it a little bit towards the west here. We will see upwards of 60 to as much as 90 millimeters here across Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and down in here through the central and southern Lesser Antilles, where we could see, that 2.5 to some of the areas 3.5 inches. Now, how's your future radar for the rest of the country here? So as we get into, we got a few showers and storms that are going to be eking their way out here as we head the rest of the night, Monday night into Tuesday morning. You can see those kind of die and fizzle out. We got high pressure building into the eastern part of the country and the Ohio Valley. We just got a few storms around the edges, of course. That is our big story across the Western Gulf. Francine we don't really have too much else to talk about here. This is some great news, but all eyes are going to be on our storm here across Louisiana and the Mississippi Valley and Gulf Coast regions, eastern Texas, all the way over to Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. And if we pick up where our future radar left off, you can see the story here. I showed you what's going to be happening with Francine. These areas are going to be watched out for severe weather here into the red. High pressure just blocking up here to the northeast, so this system is going to stall. It really doesn't have any place to go into the weekend. It does start to focus its moisture here into Georgia and the Carolinas as well, and we'll go over those rainfall amounts here in a couple minutes. But that's going to be basically the only story in town, with the exception for a stalled frontal boundary here off the coast of Florida as we head into the 17th here. So we'll have to keep a close watch on that. That could be the focal point of some sort of tropical system trying to form as we get into the 18th into the 19th around Florida here. But one common theme continues. Look at this double barrel high here across the east. A stretch of beautiful summer-like weather is going to ensue. And your Canadian weather forecast, much of eastern Canada is going to remain storm-free as we continue through the next several days. We do have a few spritzels, a trough that moves through here, southern Quebec and up into the Canadian Maritimes come the 13th. The big story is going to be over here in Saskatchewan and Manitoba and Alberta. That is where all the activity is going to be. So as we continue to go out here in time, that storm wrapping up across Saskatchewan towards the 14th and into the 15th, way up west of Hudson Bay. Wow, there really isn't too much to talk about here in Canada. Unfortunately, this dry spell could spell bad news for the continued wildfire problem. But here we go. This may help things into British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, northern Manitoba. We do see more chances of rain. Even over here into eastern Quebec, we'll have to keep an eye on as we head through the 15th. And let's just continue to cruise through here. You can see as we head towards the 18th here, look what's happening. And a low pressure ejects from the American Rockies up here across the Canadian Plains, Saskatchewan, really getting in on the act of a big bombed out low here. So watch out. Heavy rain, wind, and severe weather potential. And as we head up into Canada here, yeah, it's pretty dry through at least this week. And then we start to get into the following week. Southeast Canada is staying really dry here. Look at this. All the way over to the Canadian Maritimes. Maybe just a little spritzels here and there. The big story is going to be across Alberta, Manitoba, these areas out here. Watch out. We could have some big storms moving up here. Lots of heavy rain, upwards of 100 millimeters, bringing you up to 3.5 to 4 inches. And let's head across the Western Pacific. Do we have anything to talk about? Not at the moment. We do have a broad area of low pressure. We're keeping a close watch on this. I don't think this is going to become anything tropical, at least in the near term. We're watching another low pressure out here. Look at South Korea, Seoul, all the way down to, well, northern Japan. We still are going to watch for increased rain here across many of the Japanese islands. So unfortunately, we're going to see more rain in areas you saw from Typhoon Shanshan, which was not good. Now look at this low pressure system is going to push rainfall into eastern China and South Korea. That's going to continue to push that moisture. We have a big moisture fetch from a low pressure here on September 11th that could really start to intensify here just east of the Philippines. So let's keep a close watch on this. This is something we're going to have to keep a watch. Look at that. Northern Philippines and this area of low pressure. It does remain pretty weak here through the 13th, 14th. Very broad area of low pressure until we get to about the 16th and the 17th. This becomes a bit more menacing. This is troubling because this is a massive circulation that's been showing up here on the European run for a couple runs now. And it's just east of Taiwan and the Philippines. Look at this. This could be a pretty large typhoon if this does develop. And if we take a look at the Eastern Pacific here, what is going on with this system? We could have a system trying to form here, 60% chance through day 7 here, paralleling the Mexican coast and then eventually up towards the Baja California here. So yeah, this system's going to be providing moisture up into western parts of Mexico and eventually up into the southwest. Look at this. It's too bad this isn't a little bit further west into California where you could really use the relief from the wildfires out here, but at least it'll provide many of the Rockies out here. Look at that. That's a big storm developing out of that tropical moisture here to the north. And before we continue with more weather, check out these awesome, amazing maps that you won't find anywhere else.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
All right, so our forecast here for temperatures. Look at this. Heat across the midsection. Northeast, especially the northern New England and northern New York, 60s. But look at the 80s here, mid-80s in the Ohio Valley. As we head into Wednesday, that heat is going to spread east. Look at that. 90s through most of Ohio except for Cleveland. You're held into the 80-degree range here. Look at where Louisiana is. We're held down into the 70s with the landfalling Francine here. But look at this. The hottest air is actually not along the Gulf Coast. It's way up here into the Midwest and Northern Plains. You're into the 90s throughout most of these areas. And look at, you can see where Francine is headed. We're held down into the 70s here into the Mississippi and western Ohio River valleys here, where the warmer air is up here over the Great Lakes, the Midwest. As we head into Saturday, yeah, Texas, we do start to build the heat here, mid to upper 90s. Look at Florida as well. We're into the 90s, but yeah, pretty tempered here across the lakes, the Northeast. We're holding right around 80 to 85 degrees. Extended forecast from our hometown viewers, Binghamton, Noses, Scranton, First Susquehanna, River Valley of New York, and Pennsylvania. Look at this. Tuesday through Saturday. Yeah, it's just sunny every single day. If you have days off, enjoy them. We start off in the 70s. Look at that sleeping weather, 40s and lower 50s. And then by the end of the forecast period, it's looking very summer-like, low to mid 80s. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget, it's MeteoMark.com. And don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.